I think some people who encounter me along the way and they don't know my journey may think that I walk with the Lord all my life. I didn't. And although I always believed that there was a God, I didn't know who God was. I talked about God as God that existed, that's all. But can you imagine living and believing that there is no God? And listen, through the ages, there have been people who absolutely, unequivocally believe that there is no God. Brilliant, famous, articulate, creative, academic. The list is very long of people who have been absolutely convinced there is no God. This morning, I'm going to use the word, I got a dump on me of something that probably should have been not dumped on me. Because it really is something that I can do nothing about, and I'm not perturbed about it, but I share it with you because it shows the level of those who are not of the faith. It shows a lack of understanding. As I can respect someone, we can sit and we can discuss why you don't believe God exists. And I'll sit and I'll give you the reasons why, backed up by the book of why God exists. But it'd be very sad, this is the world through my eyes, to go through life absolutely convinced that there is no God, not even entertaining the possibility that you might be wrong. Flip that around. Now I am a faither and I believe that there is a God. And I have, if I'm going to say this, and I don't mean it in a blasphemous way, but if I have something not to lose, it is the fact that I've erred on the side that if there is a God, I've chosen to believe in him. Versus those who say there is no God and have chosen not to. This is the very same thing, by the way, that Christ in his day confronted and faced by his own brethren. It says that his own brethren refused essentially to acknowledge who he was, his mission. And in every age, there are people who refuse to believe. Don't think that your hatred of my belief is somehow going to frighten me and make me worried that somehow I've placed my trust in the wrong place. That's the wonderful thing about coming to the faith the way most of us here came to the faith. Unlike people who may have in their youth been coerced, dragged into it, born into it, raised in it, and therefore there is nothing else. Most of us did some good old-fashioned living before we came to an understanding of who God was. And then the process of learning about God came through the book and came through hundreds of thousands of hours, at least for me, for you, and for others it may be something different, but listening to Dr. Scott in my case, not just his message on the resurrection, But the fact of the matter is, once you start really looking, you find that there's more evidence, there is more. Either a bunch of lunatics penned this book at different times through the ages, or God was really in control through the ages, and that's that, and you settled it at one point. You just say, that's it, there's nothing else. But wouldn't it be sad to go through your entire life and never come to know that there is a God? And what's worse is those people, as I said, who are non-believers, atheists. And it's not enough for them to just not believe. But from this dump this morning, there's a lot of people out there that are atheist haters. And I don't mean that they hate atheists, they're just atheists that hate. So it's not just limited to Christians or any other faith. You know, hate is hate. Pepper it in with this, because I might as well just get it all out there. So you can always know where I'm coming from. I always go to the things that Jesus said. He said in the world, you're going to be hated. You're going to be hated without a cause. In the world you shall have tribulation. We're not talking about, something petty. We're talking about the world hating you for no apparent reason. And I have people that will say, I don't understand how people that don't know you could hate you that much. Some are professing to be Christians. Obviously, some are atheists. Some are who knows what they are. Don't think I'm bothered. I'm sharing with you because I want you to know that if I go through these experiences, there's no doubt in my mind, because we're all part of the body, that we all will experience something like this to some degree or another in our lifetime. I chose Christ. Well, Christ chose me, but I chose Christ, as in I could have ended up walking in any pathway. Dr. Scott Rightly used to call it the smorgasbord of life, and I could have picked from anything. Luckily, God's prevenient grace was working in my life to lead me and to show me my errors, my lack of understanding, my lack of wisdom and knowledge, and the things that you can't know until you begin to follow and you begin to realize that you don't know. And I've told you, and I'll keep saying it time and time again, I used to say, before I came to a knowledge of God, I used to say, I'm basically a good person. And the fact of the matter is that the closer you get to understanding who God is, that He is real, that He exists, the more you realize, no, you're not a good person. And the only good that might be in you is the good that He's placed in you. Now, for somebody who doesn't believe, this is all nonsense. And for somebody who doesn't believe, I only have sorrow in my heart for you. I don't have hate. I have sorrow because the facts, these are the facts. It's appointed for every person to be born and to die. And you will go out of this world never having come to a knowledge of the God who loves His creation, gave His life for it. You'll go out of this world not even, you can say it's foolishness. But I refuse to believe that we're just here in this small allotted time. We'll call it a flicker. That's all it is. May seem like an eternity down here, but it's a flicker. For there to be nothing else. Why? Even in some other faiths, if there's the mindset, I do not believe in reincarnation, but even to those who believe in reincarnation, there is something that suggests that there is something else. Choosing to believe that there's nothing, that's your choice. But it's a sad choice, because what it says is when you die, you're going to be dead. It's pretty simple. And that there is no life eternal, that this life was just what it was, an experience, a flicker, and extinguished just as quickly. On that note, I've tried over the years to say this in the best way that I can. I do not proselytize people. I've never stood, even when I was asked to make altar calls in institutions. Don't make them in the church here. I was very careful. When I was asked to do those, I did it reluctantly because of the setting I was in. It was expected. And I always phrased the question a certain way that never made it something that someone could say, I urged someone to make a decision for Christ, because my altar call was always, do you realize what was done for you? Whether you accept it or not is basically your business. You can choose to accept it or reject it all you want, but this is what happened 2,000 plus years ago. I don't proselytize people. I'm not trying, as much as I love the idea, if it was at all possible, which it is not, to be able to tell people what exactly they're missing out on, which, by the way, is not what the televangelist painted as. But you can't convince somebody whose starting point is there is nothing. And you can't try and convince somebody unless it's a person, for example, like C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, absolutely, there was no God. I love reading his life story, because not only I was not an atheist, I was never an atheist, but I totally relate to the things that he said prior to his coming to the faith. In a nutshell, we've all at some point pondered, if God exists, why does he permit certain things? And if he's such a good God, why doesn't he wipe out the bad and let the good prosper? All you got to do is go back and, as I said, look at C.S. Lewis and read his life story. That's why he got his name, the Reluctant Convert. And there are many other people that absolutely started off as unequivocal, absolutely, positively, there is no God, don't even talk to me about God, who became great heralders of the faith, and they were not delusional paupers begging for attention on a street corner. We're talking about some of the most brilliant minds that at least this last century or two has seen. So I find it just very sad. I'm not disturbed by it, but I thought if I experienced this, I should share with you. And I share with you because it seems to me that those people who come to the faith and who press close are the ones that get buffeted the worst. It's not a badge of honor to say somebody hates you. Nor is it a badge of honor for the whole world to speak well of you. Well, they love you so much tells you there's something wrong. The Bible even says that. But to wrap your mind around the fact that somebody does indeed hate, that's not even, forget about those, as I've talked about, Christians that are Christians that hate, and no one will do you like a brother or sister in the Lord. They're the best at smiling in your face and stabbing you in the back in one movement. Quicker than any Jackie Chan move I've ever seen. But it's even sadder when it comes from a frame of reference that has absolutely no frame of reference. So cheer up if you encounter these types of things. This gives you another reason to say, this is why the Lord needs to keep this ministry alive and thriving, because the message of God's light has to keep going out into a very, very dark world, that whether or not it knows it is in darkness.
Come into this house, magnify the Lord, lift up holy hands, our hearts in one accord, worship and bow down.